So a couple of years ago, I read about a study that was done, and it's really stuck with me because the findings on it were kind of interesting. There was a travel website that took a whole group of people that went on Disneyland vacations, and they had them rate how every day of their vacation was at the end of the day. So at the very end of being in the park, they came back and they rated how that day went. And what was surprising is that during the vacation, almost everybody rated every single day very highly and said it was a lot of fun. But afterward, because they waited a couple of weeks and they polled them again and said, how was your vacation? And they had to rate it the same way. A couple of weeks later, nearly everyone rated the vacation much lower. And when asked why, they pointed out all the stressful moments. They remembered all of those stressful times, all of the lines, all of the whining, all of the crying, all of the being hot and hungry. It's interesting to me that our human nature, or I think maybe more accurately, our American nature, focuses us on the negative. We remember the negative, we let it weigh us down, and we let it hold us back. We enjoy fun, like in that video, right? That was fun to watch. But when we see the lady dancing in the rain, much of us probably thought, oh, that just, she's going to be soaking wet. She won't be able to get into her car. We let it hold us back. We enjoy the fun. We like the happiness. We seek after joy, but we quickly forget. And many of us end up just focusing on the stressful, the never-ending lists, the bills, the events, the busyness, just that negative in our lives. So we're going to release some of that negativity today through an activity so that we might experience the Spirit a bit more refreshed this morning. I was trying to figure out a solution on how we can immediately release some of this, and I found one at solveyourproblem.com. What a great website name. And this is how they say we can do this. So what I'm going to have you do is you're going to move kind of towards the edge of your pew, because you're going to sit really tall as you can, with your feet flat on the floor. And you're going to try to angle your thighs slightly towards the floor a little bit, if possible. And while you're doing that, you're going to arch your back slightly and push your sternum back and relax your shoulders. Just relax your shoulders and take in a good deep breath and hold that position for a little bit. Try not to let your posture slouch. Do it again, deep breath. Just hold it for a minute. It's hard for me to do this standing up, but when I was writing this and sitting down, I could feel, like you can just kind of feel the muscles relax in your shoulders. But where I noticed it most was in my face. I could feel my face just kind of relaxing. You can feel muscle tension going away. That's actually stress that we carry around with ourselves every day. And we just let it tense us up. So do you feel a little bit lighter? Yeah, well, that website says you need to do that at least 2 times a day, every day. So I got you started. But that's one way that we can kind of just release some of that negativity in our lives. Jesus says in today's gospel reading, "As the Father has loved me, so I have loved you. Abide in my love. If you keep my commandments, you will abide in my love, just as I have kept my Father's commandments and abide in his love. I have said these things to you so that my joy may be in you and that your joy may be complete. This is my commandment, that you love one another as I have loved you. I am giving you these commands so that you may love one another." Now, this passage focuses an awful lot on love. And most of the commentaries and things that I read also focus a lot on love. And there's a lot of love that's lacking in this world, and we need to follow this command of love. But we often confuse love in our lives, and we use this word from everything from a fleeting affection to deep commitment. But with all the stuff that's going on in my life and maybe in the lives of others, what really stood out to me this week was one verse. Jesus says, "I have said these things to you so that my joy may be in you and that your joy may be complete." I read this text while I was writing the funeral message for my grandfather's funeral. And I thought to myself, how in the world can we have complete joy today? And it led me to these two questions. And you're going to have to help me answer these questions. The first is, what is happiness? What things make us happy? Well, we already could say one, right? Buzzer beaters, that was already brought up earlier. As long as they're in favor of our teams, right? What things make us happy? Family? What else? Family. Food. Children. I thought someone was saying chores. I was really confused. Children. Children doing chores. There you go. Success. Sunshine. Okay, so I think we could think of some other things that make us think of happy, or that make us happy, but I also want us to answer this question then. What is joy? What things fill us with joy? Music. True friends. The reaction of being appreciated? Okay, I was like, I don't know if I can write all that. I get what you're saying. Being appreciated. Family. Family can bring us happiness and joy. Any other things? Doing for others. So I pondered these questions for a while this week, and I continue to, even today. What is happiness and what is joy? Because I think a lot of times we end up conflating these terms in our world, but we should recognize a difference. Happiness is fleeting, but joy is lasting. Or it should be. The Greek word for joy used in this text calls for a more literal translation would be a, quote, calm delight. When I think of calm delight, I think of those rare fleeting moments where I got to fish by myself on the river outside Elkins, West Virginia. There's no one else around. It's just me and nature. It's calm delight. That's joy. Jesus is giving us this command to love so that we might find this complete calm delight, this complete joy. When I think of this phrasing, I think of the word contentment. When you spend several hours preparing, and I like that someone said food, because when you spend several hours preparing and cooking a meal, and it turns out just the way you wanted it, how do you feel after eating? Content. Calm. That calm delight, that joy. But in our world, you suddenly remember the dishes. And so that joy kind of fades. It's supposed to be lasting, and yet it still fades. So Pastor Richard Hall, in his sermon called "What Do You Do When the Wine Runs Out?" speaks on this joy. And he uses the miracle of the wedding in Cana, of Jesus turning all that water into wine, to talk about this. He says, To the Jewish people, wine symbolized joy. The Jewish rabbis had a saying, without wine there is no joy. And at the wedding in Cana, their joy had run out. This statement by the mother of Jesus goes beyond liquid refreshment at a wedding. It is symbolic of our lives. It is a reminder of the emptiness of our life without Christ. It is a scary thing when the wine runs out. Ernest Hemingway was a famous writer, but most of us might not know too many details about his life. He was a great storyteller. Many of his books are considered to be classics. The Old Man and the Sea, the story that he wrote while living in Cuba, reveals his genius. He was a Nobel Prize recipient. From the very early years of his life, he was a person who went for it all. He was a newspaper reporter and an ambulance driver during World War I. He was involved in the Spanish Civil War. He had friendships that ranged from bullfighters to authors. Whatever he did, he went for it all. He was drinking long at the natural wine of life. But there came a day when those wines ran out. And Carlos Baker records in the biography of Hemingway that one bright, cloudless Sunday morning, Ernest took his life. There are times when the wine runs out, the joy is dry. So we can find joy in this world. We can find it in a good meal and great fellowship with friends. We can find it in adventure and in nature. But this joy, though greater than happiness, it still isn't complete. It still isn't lasting. It's deeper. It has more meaning. Maybe we'll remember those joyful moments longer than those happy times, but it still isn't complete joy. In today's world, how can our joy be made complete? It's hard enough to find things to be joyful about. Maybe that's the very reason why joy jumped out to me in this text. There must be a place where we can find complete and lasting joy, the calm delight in all things. Well, the word itself gives us a great clue as to where we can find this complete joy. The Greek word in this text you can read that, right? No? Okay. It's kara. Which for me, I'm saying this word can point us to joy. For me, that's just a single letter away from my wife's name. So this can remind me of the joy that she brings in me in my life. But as awesome as I think she is, I don't think that will work for all of you, right? I think there's more to this word than it just being one letter off from my wife's name. This word actually comes from another word. It's the noun form of a root word that is a verb. I gotta look at this, make sure I spell it correctly. Yeah. Cairo, which sounds like something that might be familiar to some of you, right, Tina? Cairo. Cairo means to rejoice exceedingly, to be glad, be well, to thrive. And we can all find a reason to rejoice. Or where can we find this reason to rejoice exceedingly, to be glad, to be well? A life source that doesn't just sustain us, but wishes for us to thrive. We can find that in Christ. Now the first two letters for Christos, which is the word for Christ in Greek, is Cairo. So where can our joy be complete? In Christ. Our kara comes from Cairo. Both literally and really literally in our spiritual lives. Our joy comes from Christ. So we must follow his commands, not because he rules over us, he tells us that in this text, but because he chooses us and he calls us friends. We are moved to serve those in need because we recognize that our friend Christ is with them. In the Gospel of John, when John is talking about Jesus entering into this world, he says, "Therefore this joy of mine is now complete. He must increase, but I must decrease." As his joy in Christ is found, he recognizes it's about something greater than him. So we are moved to serve. We are moved to love one another, to love across political divides, to love across religious diversity, to love across the pew, because we recognize that Christ first loves us and he loves everyone, the other and me. And so in this same text, Jesus tells us how we must love so that our joy may be complete. He says, no one has greater love than this, to lay down one's life for one's friends. Sounds really nice. In reality, that must be terribly difficult. Because to be able to lay down our life for another means that we must see greater value in the other than in ourselves. And there's no doubt in my mind that Jesus' life is more valuable than mine, and yet he died for me. He saw me as valuable. He saw me as worthy of love and complete joy, so I am moved to look for that value in others too. And we all should be looking for that value, that peace of God that is with everyone, not just those that look and think like us, because then we will be driven by fear against others. But if we look for ways to love, that fear will dissipate. It will be like good posture for our faith, how we felt that stress just melt away in our muscles. And over time, we will find with Christ at our center, our joy can be made complete, which we especially need today. And so, speaking of joy, we need to honor someone who has brought joy, calm, peace, organization, and so much more to our church. As she rolls her eyes. So Chris, why don't you come on up for a minute? You can come all the way up so people can see. Yeah. So there's no amount of gratitude that we can show you that will be equal to what you deserve for your 27 years of service and ministry to this congregation. Now, I've only known you for 6 years, but you have helped me immeasurably. You've helped me understand ministry better. You've helped me understand administration better. Maybe my patience. No, I'm just kidding. You've helped me understand being a pastor and how to be a better person. And so I am eternally grateful for all the ways that you've helped me. And I am blessed to have been able to serve alongside you in ministry for just, even though it was only 6 years for me, but to know that you've been doing this for 27, and to know that I'll still get to see you as you continue to serve as our, I don't know what your official title is, bookkeeper. And that is awesome. And so I thank you, and I believe we have some other words for you too.
This one. Chris, you've done so much for so many of us, just from helping with the big things like mission trips and craft shows, and all the behind the scene things that you do to fill in the details so that we have what we need, even finding time for you and your sister to do the bulletin board. I think that's awesome. We want to make sure that you know how much we appreciate everything you've done. You've gone above and beyond your job. You're more of a friend, above and beyond your job for 27 years. And there's way too many memories in this room to talk about all of them. But your First Christian Church family would like to give you a gift and recognize you as a great servant and an awesome secretary for us.
Thank you, Abby. I just want to thank everyone. It has been a fun 27 years. Maybe not every minute, but most of them. And I do appreciate everyone. I just remember so many things about all of you. I hope that in the years to come that you'll remember just something about me. Thank you.
Again, I want to invite everyone to the reception after church for Chris. And there's a book in there, and I'd like everyone to sign it and maybe write a memory or just some little message to Chris that she can look at later and maybe remember those things also. Thank you.